Page 12 is our balance sheet. So on our balance sheet, as far as quick assets, there's very little change from prior month, about $3,500 less. We're about $800 less on receivables, so literally almost no change from prior month. It's about $4,300 in total on the total current assets. Total assets are about $5,900 lower than the prior month. Total liabilities are about $50,000 lower than prior month. Total capital is up $44,500 from prior month. And on page 13 of your packet, we these are the major loans within the program. You'll notice later in the meeting space, we had a discussion on LCO Destiny that the review is there. There's a request that would be considered that they will bring up later. But everything else is current or under interest only as previously resolved by our board, and looks to be all in good standing. So with that, I would make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as I presented, or as presented.
Second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, thank you. Alternative Energy Committee.
I don't believe we actually have met since our last meeting, so not much to report really.
Any upcoming projects to be considered that you're talking about?
It would be Omni what? Omni Navarez,
Navitas? Yeah, there's no R in there, is there?
Yeah.
Novartis is a drug.
Yeah, that's right.
Drug company.
That's right. I have a daughter.
Marshall, do we have an updated spreadsheet with any new projects? We do have a spreadsheet of all.
We do. I haven't, I think I made one update on it, but I can send out what I have.
Other than Omni, the only other project that we may be seeing in the very near future might be the Chameau Community Solar Project.
So Nexamp has two in Henderson that haven't made it through their boards for seeker and stuff. I don't know how far along they are in your committee. Those packets were sent through a while ago, but I don't think they've actually gotten seeker resolved, to the best of my knowledge.
Several of these are in process, and they're in various stages, and I would tell you that those stages are not as smooth flowing as they used to be. Things are
It's government work, Don. Nothing's
Well, the last I recall, Nexamp put a focus on the two projects, the Black River and the other project, and they put the Henderson and Adams. Well, one was in Adams, one was in Black River, and they were delaying the other one. And I think part of that discussion was with the pilot and sales tax issue.
But also just getting crew to build things. Focusing on one county having 5 or 6 projects is probably not a successful construction technique.
So that's where those are, but the only other one that has all its approvals locally, and I think is the Chameau Solar Project, the Chameau Community Solar.
You'll probably see an uptick in activity here shortly. We're pushing, the developers, we're pushing to get some of these in process and make sure they're adequately reviewed so that construction season this year can start. And the reason they need to do that, of course, is their tax credits that they are after, and they have to reach a certain percent of construction during this year period. So
we get minor precipitation from November onwards.
It'll be, we're facing a lot of fast track. Right? All of a sudden things have started moving all the way
this year too.
Yeah. We think we've figured out the sales tax issues, and it's been some doing, but we think we will do that. You may see some modifications in an application to change how we're going to handle that legally, but anyway, yeah, we'll certainly keep you up to speed on these things as they happen.
Okay. Buildings and grounds, anything to report? on that, John?
We have a meeting, Kent couldn't, make it today, but we have a meeting scheduled for the 16th. There is, frankly, a substantial amount of activity with respect to the Arsenal Street building. I'm a little reluctant to go into great detail right now in a public way, but,
Is this the piece we own or the piece that the water?
actually both.
Okay, okay.
Both are, on the cusp of some pretty exciting things, I believe, and, I tried to keep Chairman Dave up to speed on some of this, so he's got a notion, and we've called this meeting on the 16th, which, hopefully we can at that point know more and be able to reveal more to committees as to where we are, but I would say that, the progress on this building is really damned exciting, and unfortunately, you know, we spend a fair amount of money maintaining it, but at the end of the day, I think this is going to become one of the most exciting projects the city of Watertown has ever seen. And, I don't think I'm overstating that. The only other aspect I would bring to you is we had some issues with the building, which we've been working on to ensure that we're compliant with all city codes and so on. You know, we've had to temporize the building a good deal. And so we've been working with city codes, Carolyn and others to make sure that is in play. And we've hired P&M Construction to do some work there to keep us, you know, correctly responding to those code issues. So other than that, Jerry is doing a tremendous job down there, Jerry Countryman. He's your employee there. Been great to work with. I've had to bug him 25 times in the last month, and he never bats an eye, and, you know, he's right there. So, Mr. Converse and I have been discussing the possibility, and this was raised by Paul the other day, about having our next face-to-face meeting in a place of sufficient size, so we could get everyone there and meet the governor's requirements under COVID. So we're planning, at the moment anyway, to do the October board in person at the Arsenal Street board. And since then, I've had a request from the Watertown Local Development Corporation and a couple of other organizations to use the facility, which I would like to give them permission to do, because of its size, because of it's a beautiful, absolutely beautiful boardroom. So if you've not been there, it is well worth a community look. But in any event, that's the plan, is to have our next meeting in October at that facility.
Don, after the 16th of September, I think you said, will there be some better, I hate to use the word certainty, but better clarity of what our cost might be going into the heating season? Because I think that's the part where we kind of really get walloped. I mean, obviously you gotta heat the building and what have you, and that's gonna affect next year's budget to some small degree.
Absolutely.
So there'll be a little
Absolutely.
better clarity where things may or may not.
Lyle's done a great job of, you know, keeping track of every dollar that relates to our expense there. And we'll have to do some forecasting about the heat and those kinds of things, but, if what I think I understand right today happens, that may not be an issue going forward. Things may happen, in a way in the next few weeks that will eliminate some of the deep concerns we've had about spending the money we've had to do so.
Okay. Yeah, I know that's come up in the past, and
Yeah.
I don't wanna
Good
draw
point.
too much information, but it just,
Yeah,
it is
good
something
point.
that we did speak about. It sounds like there may be better clarity with some of the options that are being considered.
Yep, and,
Yes.
and hopefully at that point to be able to reveal a good deal more.
Thank you.
So Don, at our last meeting, we talked about should things move forward as planned with the Y, that we were interested in trying to see if we could be made whole on those expenses. From what I'm hearing you say is the Y has taken that into consideration, and they may be willing to help us cover those expenses in the interim.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that. Ed, the focus, as everyone in the room knows, thanks to Dave Zenbach and Denise, we've been pursuing actively a grant from the federal government, and that's a $9 million grant. And we anticipate sometime in the near future to have word on the status of that. So all the efforts really to date have been focused on getting that grant, pursuing it, making sure the data and so on. So if we are lucky enough to get that, that will, in my view, change how the Y is going to configure this entire operation, and that will then become a discussion. We've been, I think we've helped the Y a good deal with the initial cost of the building, and I think we've been, kind of treading water, spending money while everyone is waiting for this to occur. So I'm hoping that that'll be part of our negotiations.
Yeah, I've mentioned to Denise a couple times through the course, obviously there's no commitments at this point, but if we do get the funding and we need to retain that building as the project moves forward, I said to her, if we get this funding, we'll have to work out something that we're gonna be made whole for the carrying costs moving forward. And she's aware of that. I know they discussed that internally. I don't know details, but
If they get this grant, do you have an expectation on when they will close on the purchase?
well, if they get the grant, or if we would get the grant, we're the recipient, we have to complete the construction of the project before we can transfer ownership of it. So we'll retain ownership through the course of the renovation project and transfer it. So that's where, if we get funding, we need to work out an agreement with Y. So now we're doing something like that that's gonna cover those costs moving forward.
Yeah, we don't even have a contract with them yet.
Right.
It's not operating under the letters of intent.
Right.
And there are other factors at work, by the way, which are going to influence all of this, and so, we've been kind of, treading water as we work our way through these other issues, and when you hear all the details, I think you'll be, really excited. I know we are. The potential here is just, absolutely incredibly good for the community, particularly for the downtown section of the community, and it's working collectively with the DRI money, which is being infused into the community, and, at some point in the near future, downtown Watertown is going to look completely revitalized. And, that is the mission, because that, it's the hub on the wheel, and, when people come in to look for development in our community, the first place they go is downtown Watertown to see what the health of the community is, and it will look spectacular, in my view.
And really, when you look at communities coming out of the whole impact of this COVID thing, it couldn't be any better timing to help really give us a boost coming out of the COVID pandemic, to have some kind of investment like that downtown. For the short-term construction jobs, for what it would mean to downtown, but just for once completed, the additional activity is gonna bring downtown, that will benefit all the other surrounding businesses as well.
If they're allowed to open completely.
Well, to go back to our last meeting, and we were briefly talking when we closed the Zoom meeting, how, who would wanna be in the commercial real estate business right now? But to me, the exciting thing is because of outside forces coming to play, that square footage in that building has excellent opportunity to never be considered commercial real estate space anymore. It's actually transforming itself more to retail or, something other than commercial, which to me is the opportunity. It's not a drug on the market for us, as I see it, with what's happening around it.
It's a good point, Ed. One of the things we try to do is keep the options open for use of that building, and, we've explored several, and we continue, to explore one or two. And so, I think, without going into great detail, I think the future is very bright there. I really do. The other observation I'll make, and I'll shut up, but, I want you to watch, since it's the political season, I want you to watch the number of people who will suddenly step up and take credit for all the work that's been going on behind the scenes. As they say, success has, many fathers, and, I think we're gonna be looking at a ton of fathers coming up here real soon. So, anyway, sorry. I didn't make a personal comment.
Jay? Yes, sir. What do you got for us? I will keep it brief because of the nature of the meeting, I promise.
So first of all, good news, we've been working with NBC Watertown, to help them increase their agricultural programming. And on September 14th, they will begin running a new program called Ag Day. It is a syndicated program. That will be on from 6:30 to 7 a.m. every morning, right before the Today program, so that's a very positive time slot. The nice thing about the program, it's not the storytelling program that we would have liked them to find, but it does have some storylines to it versus all news, so that's a positive. The other nice part about that particular show is there are slots where we can insert some local programming, not big, just a couple minutes at best, but we can insert some local programming into that. Tomorrow I'll be recording some spots for them to help with the promotion of the show and so on. We're going to begin running in the show, we're going to begin running a promotion for the Farmers Luncheon webinar series that we have going on. So it's nice to see this interest in agriculture and promoting agriculture and ag education. So we're taking advantage of that. We also just submitted a grant request. Well, NBC Watertown submitted a grant request that we and the Sackets Harbor Ag Education and Awareness Center worked on, supported NBC Watertown's efforts. That will be to increase promotion, especially of the dairy industry, but of agriculture in general. It's a fairly comprehensive grant request. Would be developing 52 different videos on agriculture here in the county. It would be on increasing educational efforts and also on developing tools that we can use to help promote the dairy industry and agriculture in general. So it's exciting to see this happen. No guess as to whether we'll be successful in the grant promotion or the grant request, but we've got the effort going forward regardless. Farmers Luncheon Series, the next one is September 24th. Really excited about this one. It focuses on young women in agriculture. We have three local superstars in agriculture. Casey Porter from Porterdale Dairy Farm, Ashley Willits, who is from Lewis County, and she is actually a deputy director for a department in USDA. She's a local lady from Lewis County who has just recently come up through the high school and college ranks and has quickly moved up in USDA. And we have Allison Jones Brimmer, who is she was working for the Animal Ag Alliance down in Washington, D.C. She's now working for the U.S. Sugar Beet Council as their director of operations. Primarily, she's a lobbyist on behalf of that organization. So those three will be in a panel discussion with me. It'll happen September 24th at noontime. Would love to see some board members sign in to watch that. It is free. Just go to our website, agricultureevents.com, and you can sign right up, and it's free, and a bowl of soup while you're watching, and you can submit questions and such.
The soup is not free.
The soup is it's free if you make it yourself, so it's not free.
It's cream of something.
What's that?
Cream of something, right?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Just making sure, right? You know, straight vegetable, well, that's got beef in it.
Or, a corn and bacon chowder with some nice cream in it would be very good. So anyways, don't get me off on tangents.
Talking about food or which one?
The Jefferson Community College Agribusiness Program, I think I reported at a previous meeting, fortunately that did not get cut. which I was worried that it would be when all of the changes. We did lose the person who was the primary faculty member for that program, but they kept the program and actually moved it over to the business department, which is where I was hoping it would go. The challenge is now the faculty members in the business department are trying to figure out how to provide the instruction for the courses. So right now I've been assisting, I've been telling Don about this. I've been spending a lot of time working with the faculty members on developing the curriculum and instruction for some of those courses. But it's necessary until they can get the wheels turning nicely. It's necessary that we spend that time to make sure this asset does not go away. So it's a worthwhile venture, but it is taking some time to make sure that program stays in place. Food distribution, want to thank Dave and Greg. They have helped out with some of the large food distribution program events that we've had. We have another one coming up on tomorrow at 10 o'clock in Clayton. I won't be at that one because they changed the schedule and put it right during the radio show, and I have to do the radio show. But we have a great group of volunteers coming in. One note of concern with the food distribution event is we lost the fluid milk distributor contract. There was about 500, if I remember the stats correctly, 500,000 gallons of milk have been distributed through that program to date. Well, we just lost the company that was contracted with for supplying the fluid milk. My understanding is, according to American Dairy Association Northeast, there's nobody else in New York State that will have that contract. So tomorrow, what people will receive is, instead of a minimum of 2 gallons of milk, and those that have helped, so I can testify that sometimes if people will use it, we give them a lot more than just 2 gallons of milk.
If they ask for 3, you say, can you take 6?
Because we encourage them to give it out to neighbors and friends just to get that milk out there, because it's paid for. The farms benefit, people benefit from it. But anyways, so tomorrow what the people will receive is just 3 boxes. One is a meat box, one is a produce box, and one is a dairy box. These are put together through the contract that Renzi's was awarded. In the dairy box, there will now be, they'll take out some of the other dairy products and they'll put in a half gallon of milk, which is good that there's still some fluid milk in there, but it's nowhere near the volume of milk that was. So I have reached out to Congresswoman Stefanik's office and asked if they could look at this program and determine what's going on and why we don't have a fluid milk contract for this food distribution program. It's important to the people in need, and it's important to our dairy industry to be getting this milk out there.
Okay, where in Clayton and what time?
Clayton Arena, we ask volunteers to arrive at 9. The program begins at 10, and you should be out of there if you're volunteering. You should be out of there by noontime at the latest. Clayton's a little bit smaller program. We have 350 boxes of each thing that we'll be giving out. So it'll be a little bit shorter program tomorrow, but still, if you can volunteer, show up. Just look for Kathy Hobbs. As I said, I won't be there tomorrow, or at least I don't expect to be. So if you can show up, just walk over and look for somebody that's a really busy lady. That's Kathy, and she is really busy. 2 more things real quick. Triple E spraying, Eastern equine encephalitis. I think I sent a note to board members a couple weeks ago. A great deal of thanks goes to Jefferson County Public Health Services for the level of communication with our office on this. We were able to stand up a website We were able to, begin communicating before the information was released to the public. Thanks to that, we were able to send out notices through the Jefferson County Ag News Flash Network, which is in its 20th year this year. That saved 2 dairy farms here in the county, and I mean that literally. They were certified organic dairy farms. They were in the spray zone. If they had been sprayed with pesticide, they potentially would lose their organic certification. It was that serious. One of the farms called me up, and this was literally 24 hours out from the spraying, and said, hey, we got your news flash. We're in that zone. What do we do? So we were able to work with public health. They were able to work with the pilot, and the pilot could adjust the software so that the spray would shut off 100 feet before the boundary of their property, and then turn back on 100 feet beyond the boundary of their property. According to the organic certification organization, that was an acceptable safety zone. So it was great to have Public Health Service cooperating the way they did, and just a testament to our little old ag news flash. It helped save 2 businesses here in Jefferson County. Last but not least, Jefferson Bulk Milk Co-op, you might have seen in the press, has a contract at least to the end of the year with Upstate Niagara Milk Cooperative. They're a Western New York based cooperative, and I'm strongly encouraging Jeff Bulk Milk to do everything they can to maintain a strong relationship with that cooperative. I can't go any farther other than to say that's a good relationship to have for the future. Any questions for anything I've reported on?
Right now, that contract is just taking them, that no contract is just taking them to January 1, is that right?
That's my understanding, yes.
So it's, could be pretty iffy from then on.
If I were them, I would do everything I can to maintain that relationship. Can't say that strongly enough.
The spray, they were, in their spray plan, there was no plan to spray open fields, was there? It was all more swampy areas, more lowlands, right?
They were spraying the regions. They wouldn't spray open water. They were trying to avoid open fields, but in that spray zone, there were some open fields, which in particular were 2 fields. Well, one was a dairy farm. The other one was fields to a dairy farm. So there were fields in that spray pattern. So.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add one thing? I'd like the board to understand how valuable the work that Jay is performing on behalf of the agricultural community is. I watched this progress over the last 15 years or so, and I can attest the work he is doing, not always well understood, not always well known, but he is critical to what is going on in agriculture, and as all of us know, agriculture is critical to what drives our economy. So, I want to do a tip of the hat. I don't always do this, but he is a guy who has just taken that job and run exceedingly well with it, and I'm very proud to have him as a member of our staff. Want you to know.
Thank you, sir.
I'll just add to that, getting around the state a little bit in agricultural circles, no other county in New York State has the jewel that we have.
Absolutely.
As far as this kind of a program, funded with economic development,
Yep.
supported by the county legislature,
Yep.
with dollars, real dollars. It is a huge game changer, and aren't we lucky? And we should covet it and hang on to it. Everybody else is so jealous of it. They can't make it happen in a lot of counties. Some programs have been up for a year or 2, but then the economic drain and the tight budget, it has to be the first place they cut. This county's legislature hasn't done it. I think partly because of Jay's success, for sure.
I think if the board considers this COVID mess that we've been going through and the impact that Jay has had on agriculture, particularly in light of the activities that surround COVID or don't surround, it's particularly meaningful. I don't know what it would have been. I assume the level of impact would have, consistently risen over time. But this COVID thing has just driven the point home about having management of agriculture and its activities in the county, just how important that is for all of us. And I don't mean to get maudlin about it, but I just want you to know from a personal viewpoint, because I look at this every damn day of my life, how important this is to all of us. And credit goes to Jay and the rest of our staff for making this stuff happen. So thanks for that.
It's a team effort, thank you very much, but it is a huge team effort, thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
So that was brief.
Yeah.
I kept my part.
Manufacturing day, shorter than one.
Well, we put in for our last reimbursement for about $7,000 for the safety training program for the 2019-2020 year. As you know, we put a grant in the application that was due back in January. We haven't heard yet on that. I sent an inquiry, and the guy that managed my grant said, right now things are on pause. We haven't heard anything, so I'm not sure if we'll see it. It normally would have been starting the program in September for the next year, so whether they'll just do it late or not do it at all, we don't know yet. So, manufacturing day, it's a pretty big event we've done each year. This year, obviously, we're not going to be doing in-person tours to manufacturing facilities. So, we actually had a call the other day with our partners in education and workforce development for the 3 counties. We're gonna try to get the word out to we still want to kind of keep those careers out there in front of our students. There's still students going through, and we have manufacturers still have those workforce needs. So we're looking at generating kind of a directory to some virtual online resources and promoting those careers. And also, I just put out a note yesterday to our manufacturers that we'd like to have sort of a local impact, and the other 2 counties are going to do the same thing. Seeing if there's any local manufacturers interested in producing a video of their manufacturing process and what's involved and the roles people play in manufacturing a particular product. Got one response back already saying they're interested. We're going to see if there's interest. Maybe they do it on their own, but we may also be able to bring resources from either BOCES, from their they've got a communications program that does video production, or a JCC program. We may be able to apply some assistance there to make that happen. And the idea is we get these videos, we can actually use the GPS success platform that Marshall and Jay helped with quite a bit. There's already those career clusters and online resources. We can use that as a platform for sharing that local video. So that's kind of being investigated right now. We've got a meeting coming up tomorrow, actually 2 on again with our partners, the Economic Development, Workforce Development, on developing this career pathways effort. Again, sort of another ongoing effort to try to promote careers, not just to our youth, but also promote it to our adults that may be underemployed, may be interested in gaining some skills, kind of pointing them to the resources that are helpful to train them up in the funding resources that can provide training to them at little or no cost. So we're continuing with that. Let's see. Just a couple other projects. We did finally, the county received the 3 proposals for the doing the SES plan that we're partnering around with the county, developing our next 5-year economic development strategy. Again, timing's right to start planning for the future coming down the road. So we'll be working with Lake Forest and County Planning Department to get that organized, get the group together, start reviewing those applications, get a consultant on board, and get that process rolling. Pretty critical. And we continue with interagency calls each week. That's again, even the other partners comment periodically that they really appreciate having that chance to kind of bounce things off the wall from one another and share those things. I think we may need to back off at some point weekly, but I think it's worth making that more of a long-term, at least a monthly call that we start continuing just to maintain that line of communication with all those partners. That's it.
By the way, just add, Dave is leading the charge quite effectively, I might add, on looking at what this workforce is going to look like as we come out of this COVID thing, assuming we come out of it. The media has been interested, and we've received 2 or 3 calls recently about what we're going to look like when and if we become something back toward a normal activity. And I think most of us agree, and Dave's been working hard on trying to identify what the workforce is gonna look like, how is it gonna be impacted by all of this, and what the job markets are going to be. And I think we're going to have to lean very heavily on more and more training, more and more education, and of course, we have Dr. Gregg here who would understand all this better than I, but I think we're gonna have to reshape our future. And it's a question this agency is gonna have to be deeply involved in. I'm delighted Dave is handling most of that.
Yeah, just add to that, that was a critical need here, we've been seeing more and more before pre-COVID. With COVID-19, this seems to become even more apparent, not just because of COVID's direct impact, but now as companies look at maybe bringing more of their supply chain construction, manufacturing back onshore, back closer, so it's less reliant on international shipments and such like that. You're seeing this trend toward robotics and use of artificial intelligence. Also, I'm on a committee for the North, you've got the regional council thing that happens each year. This year, obviously, there's been no funding round or grant applications, but each region, I'm on the committee developing our strategic plan for what are the priorities for the next 6 months of the year, and then long term. And as part of that, we did a survey that is across the North Country and across all sectors, across all time frames, short term, intermediate, and long term. Workforce, the dimensions for the need for workforce doubled what the next highest need for, which others were like childcare, that does affect workforce, financing, dealing with the OPPP safety requirements, but workforce was way out there.
When I first came to the agency, most of the thrust of what we did was working with site selectors. And some of you who sat on the board back then remember our work. We invited them into town and had meetings on the St. Lawrence, and we worked with advertising agencies, and we did a lot of cultivation of business in that way. But over time, our efforts have morphed to a more holistic approach, which is attempting to work to create the environment where business could be attracted to. So, initially it was a direct outreach to business to see if we could get them to put a plant here. Now, it has morphed over time to a more, how do we create the environment where people want to locate their companies here and will find a resource, jobs and those kinds of things that are adequate to sustain them. So it's been an interesting change, although sometimes subtly, if you're looking at it over 15, 20 years, but we do see that effort going on.
Don, one thing I would reference, I don't know if you can get a number on it, but let's assume we were working on a project to relocate a major employer here with 200 jobs. Just think of how big that would be for the area. Here's what I throw out is, I'll guarantee you, the economy, the COVID thing, has probably created twice that many jobs in home, one at a time, in a workforce environment that wasn't here prior to pre-COVID. Just professional people now operating out of home who are actually moving out of the cities. I mean, that's what's fueling the real estate market to a large degree, river properties. I see it all around me.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned last time we got together, I was talking to one of my contemporaries down south in the southern part of the state, and he said the real estate markets are just absolutely stretched to the limit. There is no inventory because people are trying to get out of the city. And the example I had was my next door neighbor's daughter, who was high in a back office situation in Manhattan, said that their company no longer is going to renew their leases. They're just not going to do it. They're going to work from home. They're going to spread out and do different things. And that's an influence which is a little hard to get your arms around when you're in our business. We go for numbers, but your point is well taken. As one of the chamber executives in St. Lawrence County used to say, development occurs often one job at a time. It doesn't set the world on fire, but it's important. We have one more, then you do one more, and so on. So times are changing.
Well, to Ed's point, I've got a file right now for a real estate purchase. The guy's the CFO of a New York City law firm. He's moving to the river.
Yeah.
Move his office there.
Yeah, absolutely true, Joe.
I've dealt with a dozen people that are money people from New York City that have small summer homes up here. They're tearing the homes down and building mansions.
Yeah.
I say mansion, to me, yeah, 6,000 square foot places and up and down the river, it's amazing. They can do it remotely.
We're looking at that, well, Marshall can talk about that during his marketing report.
Marketing, Marshall.
Great segue for, one of the things that I thought for sure you were gonna start talking about, Dave, and I was gonna have to give you the hook because you called my discussion.
Don't let him get away with it.
Talent attraction, workforce attraction, we have engaged a consultant, actually kind of roundabout way, have talked to two people. We're looking at it from a regional perspective as well as something that maybe we might consider in-house. It's a really important opportunity, timely program, and we're talking about going at it a couple of different ways, but that's something that Jay and Dave and Don was on one of the calls too, that we all think is important. Said a million times, economic development is workforce in a lot of ways, and so it's a critical piece. So, and this has just kind of come up recently, our website. The people that host our website and that built our website are changing their design language. And this has opened up an opportunity for us to go back to a WordPress based website. And so we're talking with that same company about doing a refresh, doing nothing, or a potential complete revamping. From the time we first started talking about this, it's been 4 years. And as these things change, now is the time. I was kind of thinking spring to start with a website redo, for lack of a better word, redevelopment would be a more appropriate term. But that's something that looking at doing sooner rather than later. There has been some things with we've changed our advertising because as we discussed, and our advertising on the outward side with the COVID sort of pivoted to more supporting local businesses and things like that. So there is some budget opportunity there, and I talked to Lyle about it yesterday. Pivoting over to support locally, terrible. One of the stars in our video passed 2 Fridays ago. A very well-known individual along the river, and somebody that I had never met before, but when we were filming that, I really kind of took to him. Peter Mellon, he was the owner of Antique Boat America, and he was the first person in the video. Well, he passed. We're altering the video so that he's not going to be featured in it. We talked about it in staff. There was something about us leaving him in it, but from his family and the people that know him, they thought, you can kind of do what you want, but maybe it might be better if we went with if we had another person in the can, so to speak, to add the video, but they got dropped because of time constraints, so we're going to put them back in. So the deploying of that video has taken a little bit longer, expecting it today, tomorrow, and as soon as we do, you're going to start seeing it. There's a lot of in-kind opportunities to get that out there. One of the other things I just want to touch on, because it does kind of affect how we operate, internally, in the marketing side. We're looking at making some changes on our IT side, and since I'm kind of like the de facto IT person in the office, it's something that I have been spending staff time on, and it's gonna no matter what we do, we're going to be safer and more secure on our data. Not that we're not safe now, but this is going to be better, whether or not we move some things to the cloud or we keep them more on premises. We have both opportunities, and we're looking at those. So, you know, I just wanted to briefly touch on that. But, boy, we've been busy last month. It has been crazy, all sorts of weird stuff coming from all different angles, but it's been great, so, as always.
In your vision of a new website, are you picturing a secure login site where instead of trying to email 300 pages, you could place it there if there was confidential information where we could go online and get it?
We could absolutely do that, no problem. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that as far as, we've talked about it, Paul, and that is something that we should do. We could do that anyway, you know, but we could make that, I don't know if it's necessarily, you know, on our flagship website, I don't know if I'd wanna have any area where it would be password protected, because I feel like that might not look great. But there would be opportunities for us to put, you know, something where, you know, JCLDC.com or something to that effect, where we could just dump our stuff there, password protected, you know, what have you.
Because last night when I was going through this, it would be nice to have a different file, instead of one file for the agenda, 253 pages, a file for financials.
Yeah.
Like for a meeting, have 5 different files I can open up instead of one file and have to flip through hundreds of pages to find one page that Rob was pointing out to me.
Would you know, Peg, since you send those out, I mean, could we send them out just currently as a number of different files? I mean, I know that, I get where you're coming from.
I'm not trying to create more work.
No, I know.
Because half the time we get a second email saying, well, we had them bounce back because of the size, depending on who your email server is.
Yeah.
And, so that's why I think if there was a place you could go online and just download it, you're probably not gonna have the download restrictions
You
that
wouldn't
you
know.
do with email. And, you could envision it where like each one of these 3 projects could have been its own file instead of having to flip through the pages.
Yeah, and we have, and that is something that we could absolutely do either way about the website. You know, we had talked about Dropbox, that's a little bulky, but yeah, we can come up with something. I mean, we can put downloads on our website right now, but the problem is, you know, and they're public, our stuff is public docs, and we do put the agenda and all the stuff on the website now. For download, I think you send them out individually as well, that's part of our process. We'll figure out a way to do something like that.
I think just don't go do it today, but if you're redesigning the website, I think it's something we should think about doing, is to make it more convenient for everybody to access the information.
Yeah.
Marshall, what we do and what I've seen other businesses do, just in the upper right-hand corner, you have a secure area. It's just a little button that says secure board area or secure internal area, and then there's different, like File Explorer. You basically have internal staff stuff that you're not sharing with the board, that you can communicate and collaborate, and you know, if you're using Teams or whatever, you were talking about Business 365 at one time, which I highly recommend. Don't work against Microsoft, work with them.
Yes.
Honestly, I mean, because every platform gravitates towards File Explorer and being, I mean, if you have an Apple system, great, then do something else. But
Sure.
what we've discovered is it's a lot easier to collaborate within the Microsoft environment. You're not fighting Edge trying to open this and do that. But also, even if it's PDF, Paul, and I can show you, I mean, you can PDF the whole thing and just have indexes. So you can actually go to the application for XYZ, or you can search for keywords. I mean, PDF is a fairly strong file system. If it's used properly, we don't have kind of what is called a free version. I mean, you might have to upgrade to something where you can merge documents and have it indexed and be able to, from a File Explorer, grab parts of the document, or like you want to look at, say, one piece and you don't care about the financial.
I know the version of Acrobat, but I'm not sure it'll run.
But I would honestly say collaborate with businesses that aren't in the government, and you'll probably get more efficient ways, and I don't mean that as a criticism, but it's unfortunately a truth, but, you'll probably.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying, government doesn't always find the most efficient way to do stuff. I mean, it's the truth.
Well, a bolt of lightning's gonna come down.
I don't care. Put it on the news, I don't care. But, you know, honestly, collaborate with some businesses, you have team members within the board and other contacts, and I think you can find what works best for our agencies.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of good information out there.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly, I guess, we've been doing it this way, maybe it's time for us to make it.
Unfortunately, technology needs to be refreshed every 2 years, almost automatically,
And
and
we're
that's probably on the
not there.
outset, that's
Yeah.
on the outset.
Yeah.
And if you've been doing something a certain way for 2 years, it's already 2 years too long, basically, it's like driving your car off the lot, you gotta get next models here, you gotta already order the next one.
Well, I'm guilty of pushing this, this poor young man who never had that as his job description, but you're absolutely right, Rob. We've been looking at this for a while now, and it needs some upgrading and so on, and the suggestion, for example, just made is very important. Frankly, it makes it a hell of a lot easier on staff when we're trying to share information that just doesn't seem to want to share, so.
If
We need to
Dave
contract
does
with
a
an
program,
integrator to do
website,
Yeah,
we
exactly.
can get it
My
done for
son,
free.
no
We can
problem.
have all the, kids in the area do it for free.
Thanks,
Contract
Marshall.
with an
Certainly.
integrator, we'll get it done.
Marshall, I got one quick suggestion.
Certainly.
And also a question, as you reformat our website,
Mhm.
taking in mind the new jobs coming to town, those professional people who are kind of migrating from urban
Yeah.
to more of a rural setting to be more self-sufficient.
Mhm.
That's kind of, to me, the hot focus group right now versus trying to find a factory or some of these processing opportunities. Not that that might not come because of here again, our proximity
Yeah.
to Canada. Literally, I think we're gonna see opportunities there as well. But as you do that for individuals, one thing I say throw out there is something called food security. Because we as an area
Yeah.
have a huge advantage in that area of called food security. Our local supply sources, you know, the Amish communities here providing the foodstuffs that they provide. When the store shelves are empty in New Jersey and New York, you're gonna be able to find those items here. Should this happen?
And the language is a little bit different too when you're recruiting, people, to go back to the workforce side. The language is a little different than what it is when you're recruiting businesses too. That's one of the things that we've talked about with this consultant. But, food security is critical. I mean, that's,
It's a hook to catch
just,
them, catch them.
just another big, asset that we have out there, so. Thank you all.
Unfinished business, anything for the LDC?
We could pretty well.
I thought so too. Counselor, did you have anything for the LDC?
No, I do not.
Okay, we have new business. We have to consider resolution number 09.10.2020.01 for LCO Destiny.
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
Okay, it's a resolution for authorizing a modification for the revolving loan fund, revolving loan to LCO Destiny LLC. This has been a great help to our community, and she's fallen in a little bit of hard times, and it looks like she's gonna come out okay, hopefully. Any questions or on this resolution? On the resolution, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Thank you.
Yeah, Dave, I have roll call on there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call vote, please.
Dave,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Kent is absent, John is absent, Greg,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and Chris is absent.
Resolution carries. Thank you. Does anyone have anything else for the LDC? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.